Oh, here we go. I got the video. So I didn't realize they were still talking about Kamala Harris when she said, "I told you so." But technically, she didn't say "I told you so." She said, "No, I'm not going to say I told you so." That's what she exactly said. "I'm not going to tell you I told you so." But people have been like, "Oh my God, she said I told you so." She's like, "You don't say that to American people. We're suffering." And she said, "I'm not going to tell you I told you so." But she kind of did say "I told you so." And if she said "I told you so," oh well. Okay. And she did tell you so. Because for the longest time after the election, people were like, Kamala Harris never told her her policy. She never told us what she was about. And now you're hearing the language because people have been posting clips, posting the receipt showing like Kamala Harris didn't warn us. She said this was going to happen, this was going to happen, this was going to happen. And now they're saying, oh, she didn't make a compelling argument. This is what you're going to start hearing now. Kamala Harris did not make a compelling argument. Well, when you say he's going to take away your rights, he's going to crash the economy, it was compelling to me. It got my ass up to vote. When she said everything would be destroyed, democracy was going to be gone, it was compelling to me. Put a 1 in the chat if her argument was compelling. Put a 2, it wasn't compelling. Put a 1, yes. Put a 2, no. Because I'm a little confused. Like, it was compelling enough. Like, did you need to do a cartwheel? What are you guys talking about? Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that. Thank you. Shannon, were you the one going to Mexico? We got to talk. We got to talk behind the scenes. Hit me up on Instagram. Thank you guys for all the ones. Yeah, it was compelling enough. Like, I'm all like, what did y'all need to hear? What? I even read. See, yeah. And mind you, and Alexis, I'm so happy that you brought that up because on Kamala Harris' website, it literally said her policies, and then underneath in red, it said what Project 2025 policy was. And they say, oh, she had no policies. She told you what the policy was, and she even had what Project 2025 was, what their policy, what the adverse was going to be. Y'all just didn't want to hear it because y'all were worried about if she was black or not. Is she black? Is she Indian? Is she white? We don't know what she is. And that had nothing to do with nothing, right? Let's play this video, y'all, before I start cussing.
Or support the ability to have a living wage.
So we heard your former running mate, Kamala Harris, say she's not here to say, I told you so, although obviously that's what she was saying about all the Trump chaos. We're saying, I have to say, though, what does I told you so really mean here? I mean, people heard her message. They did not vote for her. She lost every battleground state. You yourself have criticized the Harris-Walz campaign for being too cautious. She may have told the American people, she may have warned the American people, but she didn't do it compellingly enough to win.
That is the absolute point. And look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I own this. I'm part of the ticket. And
so pause that moment for real quick. Because what you have been seeing in the media is that Tim Walz turned on Kamala Harris. Tim Walz slams Kamala. Da-da-da-da-da. You see right here, he was like, well, I take some responsibility. I was a part of the ticket. So what you're seeing is the media spin this, right? And they're basically saying Tim Walz separates himself from Kamala Harris. Tim Walz bashes Kamala Harris. He never did. We're going to let him finish, though. But I wanted to point that out right there because he said, I was a part of the ticket.
Somebody has to come up with a strategy. I think this is exactly right. This is the thing. Look, Democrats, it was a good night in Wisconsin. I was over there. We saw that happen. Donald Trump's doing this. Just to be clear, nobody on the Democratic side is celebrating this. And those folks in the street are not celebrating that Donald Trump's making all these errors. I think what the vice president's saying is that was pretty self-evident that he was going to do that. I do think the challenge for Democrats, and this is, I think, a structural problem that's going to take a lot more thinking. Why, with all of that out there, did they not think we were any better than that, and they didn't. And I'm very concerned with the folks who stayed home. And these are folks that I'll say once again, Donald Trump has identified their angst. They can't buy a house. They can't afford to get a good education. They're concerned that their economic future is so precarious it could slip out from under them. Less than half of Americans have $1,000 in savings. And I think, why was it not so compelling? It should have been a slam dunk for us to say, we're the party that cares about that. We're the party that's going to protect Social Security and Medicare. We're the party that thinks the ACA is a good start, but we need to do more on healthcare. And we didn't do that. So I'm concerned. Democrats do well in special elections and off-year elections, but the electorate that comes in presidential election years is different. When I was young, it was easy.
So I want to speak to that because the Democrats have horrible messaging, right? Republicans, I don't know what it is. Excuse me. When I get a PR team, I definitely need a Republican because they can spin shit, make it sound good, make it sound one way when it's not. Like, Republicans be on it. Listen, when Trump first ran in 2016, the only thing I remember about his campaign, built the wall. Even though it was like the dumbest slogan, built the wall was easier than, I don't even know what Hillary's slogan was. I don't know. And so now with this recent election, Donald Trump was like, oh, these trans people in the sports, you got the immigrants, they're taking your jobs, taking your houses. And he just made it immigrants, trans people, and we're anti-DEI. He had 3 key points, and it made it easier and palatable for people. Where the Democrats are, with the Democrats, you have to explain their policies. With Trump, he can just say something and people just believe it. That's kind of like the sad part. He can just say a few words, and then with Kamala, and this kind of goes with the double standard because Kamala had to explain everything up and down and backwards. Trump never had to explain anything. When they asked him literally about childcare, he said, well, the tariffs are going to pay for that. What about healthcare? Well, we're going to have tariffs. Housing. Well, we're going to get these immigrants deported and all this other stuff. Crime. The immigrants. He also said he wanted to give quantified immunity to the cops too. And he got rid of that database that held the cops accountable for past discretions too, right? I forgot what it was called, but he got rid of that database. So everything has been happening, and this is where we are. All right, let me continue.
Easy to know what a Democrat was. They stood with the working class and labor. Republicans were country club and for the rich. Today, you ask people, they don't. We have a 29% approval rating.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us any that Donald Trump
things.
ends up with a 25% approval rating. We have to get back to the core issues, that this is about making America prosperous and stable and innovative for everybody.
Well, what do you make of the criticism that one of the reasons why your party was so resoundingly rejected last November is because Democrats were gaslighting the country, saying that inflation was not a big deal, heralding Bidenomics. Not only Biden, but Kamala Harris was heralding Bidenomics, pretending that there.
Kamala never said that inflation was okay and everything was all right. She said that she realized people were hurting. She immediately came out and said that, and she realized that the American people are, prices are too high, income is low, housing is an issue. She spoke to those things. So Tapper, he's trying to gaslight. He's gaslighting Tim Walz and trying to pressure. What he wanted was a soundbite from Walz saying, like, yeah, Kamala was horrible. He wanted that soundbite. CNN know what they doing. They bastards.
There wasn't a problem at the border. And then fundamentally, this idea that President Biden was up for another 4 years of the job, while Americans in poll after poll for year after year were saying he's too old to do the job. Your party stood against all of those things.
Look, Joe Biden coming in and during COVID and being a governor through COVID did a hell of a job. But I think one of the things that we didn't do is we assumed that we said, and it was true, that we were going to have a soft landing and our economy was better than the rest of the world. Better for who? Better for the working class who was saying groceries were too expensive, as they are now in going up. They got to see us talk about things. Again, I go back to this. Don't talk about food insecurity or housing type of issues. Talk about people being hungry and wondering where they're going to live, or about their children's future, about real security. And so I think your question is spot on. I think we got intellectualized on this. I think the fact of the matter is Joe Biden did soft land the economy. He did usher us through COVID. None of us are saying we should be soft on the border, but we allow a vacuum, and Donald Trump fills it, the 800-pound gorilla, and their narrative starts to stick, and we look weak. We look weak, like we don't care. We look like look, Jake, I'm not going to say, we need to.
So totally right there, he's taking an accountability, but it's not really him that has to take accountability. I will tell you this. I don't think Tim Walz should take accountability for what happened with the election, and I don't feel Kamala Harris should take accountability. What I do take accountability for is Joe Biden. This is all Joe Biden's fault. This is his fault. Yes, he definitely should have dropped out. I totally agree with that. Joe Biden should have dropped out. He should have never thought, he was going to be able to run. No, that man could barely speak. I can barely speak right now, but that man could barely speak. He could barely walk. He was Sleepy Joe. Let's be honest about that. However, okay, that's nice. That's fine and dandy. But what were you going to do after that? Like, that's my thing. He should have dropped out way before, but okay, he didn't drop out before. He said, hey, I'm putting my support behind Kamala Harris. With it being such a short period of time, Kamala was the best choice at that time. I don't think if they would have did a primary and then got in a new candidate, I don't think that would have worked. Because what would have happened was that if they had to go through a primary, did a debate and all that stuff, literally all the Democratic candidates would be slandering each other, right? Those would be turned into attack ads against whoever the Democratic candidate would have been. And they'd be like, see, the Democratic leader doesn't even trust this other Democrat. You know how those commercials be sounding, right? So it was never going to be a good spot. So from what happened, it wasn't realistic. So realistically, Kamala was the only choice. Last minute, that was the only choice. Anytime something happens to a president, the vice president is next. Like, I don't know why people are still making that argument like, if we would have went through a primary. I'm going to even go out on a limb and say this. I believe that if it went through a primary, Kamala would have still ended up winning. Yeah, she would have won the primary. Like, there's no way in hell they would have just skipped over her. Nah.
To do is we need to just arrest people and ship them to El Salvador. No, we need to invest the money on border. We need to make sure that we have the judges necessary to adjudicate things faster. We need to make sure if you're going to be in this country here legally, and when you are, you're going to be uplifted, celebrated, and part of this great American tapestry. We didn't do that, and then it fills them. They'll find the example that is horrific, where you have someone who's not here legally and they commit a crime. That is horrific, but we don't do a good job of telling that.
Don't you think your party needs to acknowledge that President Biden was not up for the job of running for re-election, and that this was a major mistake by
He made that decision.
It doesn't matter anymore. Like yes, of course he should have dropped out earlier. Yes, he should have. Yes. However, does anybody care at this point? Like, why are we still talking about that? It's nothing. It's nothing you can do now. Yes, of course he should have.
I know, but you all went along with the idea that he was up for it, and he wasn't. And everybody saw it, and the country rejected it.
Yeah, well, look, history will tell us to go back on that. That very well could be the case, Jake. What I'm concerned about is learning from those lessons. I would hope we would never do it again, make a mistake, make sure we go through and get someone. But I don't know where it helps us going forward. I certainly am deeply concerned that Donald Trump is going to lead us down a horrific. Look, thank God it's tariffs that he said. Donald Trump listens to no one. Remember, Donald Trump has statements.
Exactly. Like, let's not go back to the past and keep regurgitating. He should have dropped out. Like, he should have dropped out. Okay, well, we know that. Like, here's the thing. I don't think no one is saying no, Biden shouldn't have dropped out. I think for the most part, we all were under the impression like, yeah, he should have dropped out earlier. That's a fact. We know that now. And we knew it at the time. But again, like I said, realistically, okay, he dropped out late. Okay, Kamala, it's your turn. Go ahead.
It's about, I don't think nuclear war would be that bad. I guess we're lucky that he went after tariffs instead of that route.
Yeah.
We have an issue in this country that is going to impact us. And if there is not a loyal opposition, if there's not some soul searching on our side, if there's not reaching out to those folks who are in the streets, they're
a yellow Thundercat. What did you not believe what she said? Everything that she has said has happened. So what was it that you didn't believe? You mean at the time you didn't believe it? You had to see it with your own two eyes. Trump was already president, so why didn't you see it?
We're leading right now.
So quick question.
I would tell everybody, you better get with them. Yeah.
Quick question, because we got to go. But you said you're not going to run for the Senate seat there. Are you going to run for a third term for governor? Are you possibly going to run for president in 2028?
Well, I'm certainly thinking about running again in Minnesota if that's what they want. I am not thinking about running in 2028. And my advice to folks is if in this moment you're planning for 2028, you're going to get rolled by the people in the streets. You just need to be out there making sure you're helping and doing things like Cory Booker's doing things like Bernie Sanders, AOC, things that we see people out talking to folks. So for me, I'm going to get through this legislative session. If the folks in Minnesota want me, I'm kind of inclined to do that. And I just want to play my part to make sure we cannot afford to allow Donald Trump or his successor to go forward because you're seeing the pain.
Good to have you back here, Governor Walz. Oh,
right. And, I like what Tim Walz said. So all the people saying he threw Kamala under the bus, he didn't. That's all a lie. I want to say this too. Kamala was given a speech at a women's summit. She wasn't given a campaign speech. Oh, how dare she say I told you so and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't a campaign speech. It was a women's summit. And some people argue, oh, well, why is she giving talks? She should be out here fighting for the people. She did 5 months ago. She doesn't need to be out here again. What does she need to be out here for? Have you ever thought like, oh, well, maybe she's trying to think of a plan? Because more than likely, I don't think she's running for governor. I don't. I think she will run for president again. And this way, I think it's perfect. Everybody say, oh, Kamala was just put in. She didn't earn it. She didn't do this. Well, 2028 will be her time to prove whether or not she was given that position or she would be able to earn it. That's it. Let the people decide, right? But more than likely, she's trying to stay really out the public eyes because one thing is she's going to always be under the attack. Even for this, I told you so, even though she said, I'm not going to tell you I told you so, she's still being attacked. So whatever she does is under a microscope. So she understands that she's always going to be attacked. So the best bet for her is just to be quiet. That's what Kamala is doing. She's just staying quiet. She's doing her speaking engagements, and that's it. And then as the years go on, or I should say a year go on, we'll find out what she's going to do. But right now, I bet you anything she's planning. You see with the protest, she spoke out. The Wisconsin election, she spoke out. The Louisiana, that special election in Louisiana where they were trying to take resources away from the people of Louisiana and charge them more and give tax cuts to the rich. She spoke out against that. So whenever she speaks, she's going to make sure that it's for something important. She's not going to be out here like Bernie Sanders. She's a private citizen, you guys. She's a private citizen. She's not in public office anymore. So it'd be weird for her to campaign now before we even talk about an election. Just like Tim Walz said, like, I think people should be thinking about now and not 2028. Because if you think about 2028 before you even think about what's going on right now, because mind you, we got midterms in 2026. That's what we really need to be focused on is the midterms in 2026. And I think there's another special election for the seat in New York. I just don't know where, but when I find out, I'm definitely going to educate y'all, tell y'all where y'all can donate because at least flip that seat. Okay. There's Yellow Thundercat and Miss Barbara here. I don't know if y'all want to click the link. I can spend a couple more minutes online. And please stay on topic. As soon as you don't stay on topic, you're getting dropped. On November 6th medal. Yeah, but I was all like, yeah, they got to stop that whole speech about she didn't say anything. She didn't warn us. Now, oh, she didn't make a compelling argument. It was compelling enough. It was compelling enough. That's it. Section 8 is slavery. Honest dollar is respected. I don't think there's anything wrong with Section 8. But again, we weren't talking about Section 8. Exactly. She's using this time to plan. Yeah, they just didn't want to listen. You're right about that. I think they canceled it. Trump pulled her from her ambassadorship. Oh wait, who's ambassadorship? Hold on, I didn't hear about that. Funny how we couldn't elect a woman, but Mexico did and have eggs less than 2. But funny story about Mexico. You know, Mexico had the first black president in North America, and now they have the first woman president in North America. Just hard-headed. Yep. I don't want no smoke. Oh, and Yellow Thundercat, you said something too about what did she do while she was in the house? She was the vice president. She was not the president. She was the vice president. Just like, what does JD Vance do? You know? Also, guys, the link is pinned up at top for She Paints. Make sure you guys follow her on Facebook because she is going to Europe soon. I know a lot of you guys have been wondering, who is She Paints? Where does she come from? Well, she is a Jill of all trades. She's literally an artist, a painter, a travel vlogger. Get to know She Paints on Facebook. She's actually going to Europe. You get to see London, Paris, Amsterdam, the world through her eyes. Have you ever been afraid to travel the world and been like, oh, I don't know how this is? Well, you have your opportunity to see how it is through the eyes of She Paints. Make sure you guys follow her on Facebook right now because you don't want to miss her journey through Europe. You are going to be in for a treat. I promise you that. Lauren, you ain't lying.